Welcome to the Public Interest. This is a program produced by the Ministry of the Presidency that allows for the media to interact with the President and with the hope of bringing you, the viewing public, some updated information on topical issues. As always, we have with us President David Granger. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much.
Joining us today, we have Mr. Tajeram Mohabir from the Guyana Chronicle and Ms. Devina Samaroo from the Guyana Times. Welcome to you both.
Thank you.
Sir, over the past 2 weeks, there have been a lot of cultural events. We celebrated the 100th anniversary of the abolition of Indian indentureship, and you went to the Ghana Day observance. And in a couple of days, we'll be celebrating Holi. And I just want to ask, how important is it to maintain social cohesion in a society so diverse that as we navigate the decision-making process and we're dealing with issues that can potentially be divisive, how do we maintain social cohesion?
Well, the answer is embedded in your own question, because you could look at it two ways. One, what happens to a society without social cohesion? And when you look at some countries in the Middle East particularly, you can see the decay and the damage and the death, that comes about when there's an absence of social cohesion. So one answer is that the absence of social cohesion is very dangerous. The other answer, of course, is it's a positive value. It helps people to work together in communities, in the municipalities, in the regions, and in the country as a whole. There's no way we can change our own ethnic composition, and we have to occupy the same space called Guyana. So we have to learn to live together, and our children have to learn to respect each other, others' cultures, other religions. And I think over this period, particularly in Guyana, we are seeing that. We have observed the abolition of Indian indentured immigration as a national day. We are observing Holi respectfully as Pagwa, although there is fun. It is an important religious festival and a spring festival. Next week, we'll be observing the anniversary of the Rose Hall martyrs, at which 15 sugar workers were killed. It was the single worst massacre of Indian indentured laborers, and I would like the whole country to understand that the freedom which we have today was bought with the blood of our working class people. And of course, we are also going to be celebrating other national events, as you pointed out. Ghana Day is important to some people of African descent because a significant number of the Africans in Guyana are descended from the Akan people, who constitute about 49% of modern-day Ghana. So all in all, I think that Guyana is growing much more respectful of each other's cultures and religion. Guyana is growing more tolerant. And I believe that with the establishment of a Ministry of Social Cohesion, we are going to make much more progress. So I'm not terribly worried about what is being said and done now, but I'm very confident that Guyanese children are going to grow up to be more respectful of each other's differences.
Thank you, sir. Tej?
Thank you, Vindy. Mr. President, we have a National Day for Indians. And sometime earlier this year, you also mentioned a National Day for Chinese. And if I heard well, we'll have a National Day for Portuguese. Why do we have these separate dates instead of a week in celebration of indentureship or a month in celebration of indentureship?
Because we are different people, and I don't want to gloss over the differences. People are aware they are of Chinese ancestry or Portuguese ancestry or Indian ancestry. And I don't see anything wrong in each group, paying homage to its own heritage, to its own ancestry. And I think it helps to engender respect. That we must understand that our first president, for example, Arthur Chung, was of Chinese descent. He came from Windsor Forest. There's a little monument at Windsor Forest. I think people are proud. People are proud of the fact that he was president. People are proud that Chedi Jagam was president, and quite recently we had a memorial, and he's of Indian descent. Nobody hides that. So I think that we shouldn't gloss over differences. We should be respectful of those differences, because when we gloss over the differences, we we tend not to understand that people have certain sensitivities. So they are indigenous people, they're African people, they're Indian people, and I don't think it is divisive to recognize each strand in the tapestry of Guyanese culture.
Okay, Mr. Granger, good morning.
Morning.
I'd like to bring your attention to an issue that has been making headlines recently, that is the Soku matter. Most recently, Mr. Nandlal, he sent out a statement to the media saying that you were apologetic towards what was happening with regards to the arrest made by Soku against former President Jagdeo and Dr. Lunshan, and that you would sort of investigate who gave the directives for these arrests. He said you made these comments during the meeting at State House with the opposition leader. Could you confirm if you did say anything to this matter?
I did express regret personally to Mr. Jagdeo. I did not feel that his arrest was, his personal arrest was justified in the circumstances, but I did not overrule the right of the Guyana police force to conduct an investigation or to invite people of any rank to go to Soku headquarters. It is not possible for Soku to visit every single former minister, but I do feel that at the level of a head of state, the matter could have been handled differently. I did not intervene, I did not order the investigation, and I only expressed my view because of my personal relationship to a former president. But the police must be allowed to do their job. And if their duties require them to invite persons who are accused of certain offenses or who have information to provide, I think they should be allowed to do that without interference. I did not interfere, and I will not interfere with the investigation. But it's impossible for Soku to go around the country, trying to have private interviews because of the perceived rank of any person they're interested in. So it is something personal. I believe that in the instance of the former president alone, that an exception could have been made. But as I said, I don't interfere with the police work, and I think they acted properly, generally speaking, with regard to the other ministers.
President Granger, you said the matter could have been handled differently. How differently could it have been handled?
He's been president for 12 years, and I believe that if it was determined that his involvement in the matter under investigation did not warrant his going to the office, a decision could have been taken at the level of the Guyana police force. It wasn't a political witch hunt. It wasn't ordered by any political official. So it is my view that some other way could have been used to determine whether his presence at the headquarters was necessary. And that could have been done by the phone or by a visit. But if after such a visit it was felt necessary for him to go down to headquarters, I would have no objection to that. But I'm very careful, I'm very respectful in what I say of or to former heads of state. And I think that's the political culture I like to encourage. It's a matter of political culture.
Mr. President, still on the Soku matter, I saw former Minister Robert Prasad indicating that, if there's any difference in the amount that was paid for the property that he acquired, he's willing to settle the difference. Is your government open to such settlement?
This is a police matter. I have not intervened. My government is not giving instructions to the police force. It's a matter of the Guyana police force and the Soku, which is part of the police force. And the Soku must determine if a crime has been committed and how to handle that crime. The Guyana police force has a legal advisor. So I can't answer that question.
Mr. Granger, turning your attention away to another trending matter regarding the procurement of drugs. So my question to you would be, what are your views on sole sourcing, particularly sole sourcing from a foreign company as opposed to a local company?
Well, I don't make a distinction. We have a position on sole sourcing, and When we came into office, we felt that this was not the type of practice that should be encouraged. My understanding of the present situation, a crisis arose at the Guyana Public Hospital Corporation. Some drugs were ordered in 2016, and for various reasons, the pharmaceuticals were not delivered, and the Public Hospital Corporation invited the persons who were shortlisted to make presentations with regard to providing the drugs which were in short supply. So we have not changed. I have not changed my position. We have done a lot to ensure that the Public Procurement Commission is established so that we could bring this whole practice of sole sourcing to an end.
How do you address the issue that the drugs which were procured at a cost of about $606 million from a foreign company, and local manufacturers are contending that it could have been procured locally at better prices?
Well, that matter could be resolved within the Ministry of Finance or within the Guyana Public Hospital Corporation or the Ministry of Public Health. But I am not aware that any law has been broken or there's been any criminality. If there's some procedural irregularity, that could be rectified. And if it is found that somebody is at fault, well, there could be disciplinary action. But it is not the policy of the government to procure drugs through sole sourcing. It's not our policy. There was a crisis, and the drugs which are in question ought to have been supplied since last year. There had to be some delay on the part of the suppliers. And whether the action taken to remedy the situation is correct or incorrect, well, the Minister of Public Health could investigate that.
When you say the matter can be rectified, could you elaborate on how it can be rectified?
It could be rectified through proper tendering for the supply of pharmaceuticals. I am dissatisfied with the way pharmaceuticals are procured, stored, and distributed to the various medical institutions around the country. And that is why I made a change at the beginning of this year. And as I said, what has occurred recently is a holdover from orders which were placed in 2016.
Mr. President, let us go back a little to the Soku matter. On the campaign trail, you made a promise to deal condignly with corruption.
You're quoting my words?
Well, it amounts to that.
Amongst
Now, I'm seeing this Soku matter, and the investigation is more of a follow-through of a promise that has been made. Former ministers of government in the Prado scheme deal, they're being investigated, including a former president. And from my information, one of your advisors probably might appear before Soku. Now, is this a message that regardless if you're in government or in opposition, anyone who is found or is suspicious of being involved in shady activity will be investigated by that body, be it whether it's a senior public servant, a minister of government, whoever?
The Soku was established by the PPP administration. It is a branch of the Guyana Police Force. I do not give direction to Soku. Soku has its work to do. The police force has its work to do. I'm not sending a message to anyone. So I don't know what you expect me to say. I'm not, as far as I'm concerned, the police has a mandate to bring criminality to an end, to investigate crimes, to identify criminals and bring them to prosecution. This is what is taking place. So I'm not going after anybody. The government my administration did make a statement about corruption. If corrupt practices are found, if driving under the influence driving without due care and attention, if a murder is committed, I don't give instructions on every crime that takes place. It's up to the police. I have not been told about who is to be prosecuted. These are things I read in the paper like you.
Sir, moving away from Soku, last week you visited the Bahamas, the northernmost CARICOM state, and we are the southernmost CARICOM state. Why is it important, or how important is it for regional integration, these face-to-face interactions between head of states?
The Caribbean community was established 44 years ago, and some people are of the view that progress towards establishing a single market and economy is slow. It is important to all of us because we are a poor country. Most of the member states are poor, and we feel that by combining our economies, by working together, we could get benefits which individually the states will not be able to get. For example, if you have a single market, we'll be able to produce more goods, sell goods into more or less a protected or controlled market, and this is not happening sufficiently now. So Bahamas is a very important economy. It is perhaps it probably has the highest per capita income in the Caribbean. It has the best organized tourist industry. It is a financial center. It is a center for, when we were there were at least half a dozen cruise ships in the port. It has a major cruise ship repair facility. So there's a lot we can learn from the Bahamas. So I would like my semester, I call it a semester like a student, my semester as chair of CARICOM to see some advance in the economy. So people tend to dismiss CARICOM as if it is not important, but I think it's central to the economic viability of the 15 Caribbean member states. And we have to, as chairman, I have to visit these places. I went to St. Vincent, I went to Barbados, I went to Haiti, and I have to pay attention to the bigger picture. People want to know what's happening outside the front door, but I have to have concerns both at the strategic level and at the municipal level. So it's very important to the entire region that we build our economies and we establish that single market.
Can you say what are some of the specific things you and Prime Minister Christie discussed in terms of trade and cooperation?
Well, essentially, we are interested in agriculture. I'm interested in selling agricultural products. The Bahamas is a large tourist market, and the region as a whole consumes billions of dollars of imported food, and Guyana is interested in selling rice and other food products to the Bahamas. We're also interested in diversifying our tourism products. When people think of tourism in the Caribbean, they think of the sun, sand, beaches, palm trees. But the three mainland states, Belize, Guyana, and Suriname, have a different tourist product. We have flora and fauna, we have adventure tourism, we have ecotourism possibilities, and we would like to see Bahamian technology, Bahamian capital, combine the two tourist products. A tourist can come in a package tour and do the sun and sand, and they could come and do the flora and fauna. So those are some of the issues that we discuss. And we feel that the Caribbean could move together in a more holistic way, rather than seeing the islands separate from the mainland.
Mr. Granger, let's talk a bit about VAT. Even though this happened, the laws were passed since earlier this year which introduced a whole new tax measure. People are still sort of disgruntled about it, particularly with the fact that they're paying VAT on some services that aren't efficient, like GPL, GWI, and GTT. How do you address those concerns? Like, why pay more for a service that hasn't been proven? Additionally, on the matter of VAT, you've emphasized so much on the importance of education, yet there is a 14% charge on that critical service that's being offered by private institutions. How do you address those concerns?
Well, nobody likes paying taxes, but no country could run without taxes. So it is a question of making a choice. Some services are poor because they are not supported by a sufficiently broad financial base, and this is one of the problems in the city. This is one of the problems with the utilities that you spoke about. And if we are to get better service, people have to pay for those services. So it's not necessarily a chicken and egg situation, but if you want to have a better country, better services overall, we have to broaden the tax base. Too few people are being taxed too highly. And there are many people who are providing services, earning incomes, and not paying their share of taxes. For example, you may have, you drive on roads, somebody has to maintain those roads. Your children go to school, those teachers have to be trained at a place called the Cyril Potter College of Education or the University of Guyana. All of these payments have to be made from the government. And this year particularly, last year as well, in fact for several years, the government has been providing subsidies for organizations or institutions, and we need to broaden the tax base so that it doesn't fall too heavily on one small group of taxpayers. So much of what you are seeing is simply an attempt to broaden the tax base and at the same time provide enough capital, enough finance for the services and utilities to be provided effectively and efficiently to the general population.
So by broadening the tax base, you're bringing in more people who never used to pay taxes on certain services before. That results in a strain on spending power, which ultimately impacts the amount of money circulating in the economy. So how does that work out for the government?
The point they made initially is that government, by and large, gets its money through taxation. It works out because by getting that money, you get better schools, you get better services, protection, for example, in the police force or defense force. You get better utilities. People have to use ferries to go to Bartica and to use riverine areas. And all of these services have to be paid for. So that's where we get the money from, and that's how governments work. They impose taxes and they provide services. And obviously, any government would be interested in making sure that the services are efficient and the taxes are minimal. But people who pay taxes will always complain. So nobody wants to overtax the population, but at the same time, we want to make sure that the services which the country needs to operate, what the country depends on, are provided efficiently and with as little expense as possible.
Mr. President, well, some of the private schools, they have been complaining, but I don't think all of them operate to the standard that they should, at least a school should. Would any effort be made by your government to monitor some of these private schools in terms of the delivery of quality education?
The cabinet, the executive branch deliberated a long time on these matters. We would like to review the entire taxation regime in time for the next budget, financial year 2018. And during this period of time, we will certainly monitor the schools, all agencies, to make sure that the burden of taxes is moderate. For example, we have reduced value-added tax this year to 14%, I think it is. So it's not a harsh measure. It is just a fair measure that is broadening the tax base. And yes, we will look at the schools more closely to make sure that the quality of education they're delivering, that the facilities, the classrooms, the furniture, the toilets, the emoluments to teachers are all up to the standards that we expect in modern secondary schools. So it is a work in progress, and Cabinet is not unmindful of the petitions. I have received petitions, the Minister of Finance has received petitions, and the Cabinet has deliberated on it. So we will continue to monitor it during financial year 2017. And I expect, once things improve, we are going to make some changes that, if we feel those changes are necessary for financial year 2018.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. Well, a follow-up from Vindy. You spoke about agro-processing sometime last year during the local government elections. It's a route that these tongues should go. Well, I've been traveling around and speaking with farmers and so on, and they said, and they commended you for that, for encouraging encouraging them to go in that direction. But one of the concerns is that they need some bit of support from the government in terms of capital. Is your government prepared to help them in that way?
Yes, the Minister of Business and the Minister of Agriculture, who traveled with me to the Bahamas, are quite aware of my policy. As you know, we introduced the National Tree Day, the first Saturday in October, so that people can plant more fruit trees. We examined the packaging plant at Parika, and there is a window for funding small and micro businesses in the Ministry of Business. So I'm very confident that once people require that sort of capital, for example, there's a SLED program which started last year, SLED, and this is mostly for young people. And we feel that once they need capital and they present, proposals, we could help them to get maybe some machine to make cassava bread or some to produce juice. But yes, that is the idea that's the idea we are working at those two ministries, agriculture and business. Not only to grow the materials, but through business to actually process them and find markets in the Caribbean for them. So those initiatives are in keeping with the policy, and as I have said very frequently, especially in the rural economies, village economies, this is where we should get started. And it's starting to happen. It is starting to happen. I think you'll see different types of cassava bread and peanut butter coming out of the Rupununi marmalade. So it's catching on.
Mr. Granger, the final question, I believe. Durban Park, it was meant to be a state-of-the-art facility. But so far, when the construction started and all the releases that came out from the Ministry of Presidency, the aim of that development was to have it transformed into a state-of-the-art arena. So far, construction...
Those are your words. State-of-the-art are your words.
No, that was in the release.
I have never used those words.
Well, that was the idea.
Anyhow, proceed.
That was the idea for it to be, modern.
It is the single largest stadium in the country right now.
But are there more plans to develop it further, or is that what is there? Is that the final product?
Durban Park is the largest stadium in the country. It has been placed under the Ministry of Education alongside the Providence Stadium and the Leonora Stadium, and we would like to see it used. It is being used for mass activities such as Mashramani, rallies, the children's education rally, religious rallies take place there, military parades take place there. So we are getting accustomed to it, but it is not meant to surpass the National Stadium or the Leonora Stadium in terms of its beauty or its facilities. It is functional as a place where the population could have mass events. And I expect that, I hope that maybe in the Diwali or Holi, more people will be able to go there and intermingle and have a good time.
Yep, but the question, are there plans to further enhance what is there? Perhaps get better bleachers?
There are no immediate plans. It's under the Ministry of Education, particularly the department responsible for culture, youth and sport, and there are no plans in the short term to make it into a state-of-the-art facility.
We have time for one more quick question.
Well, thank you very much, Vindy. Well, Pago is just around the corner, Mr. President. What's your message to Guyanese on this special occasion?
Well, have fun. First of all, it is, I regard it as a national festival. Most Guyanese now have gone beyond regarding these festivals as being purely ethnic or purely religious. And I would ask that all Guyanese come out to support it, regardless of their religious background. And I would urge that it be used as a forum for bringing Guyanese together. It is a very happy day in some parts of India. And I think it's a day of friendship. It is a day when we break down barriers and we extend the greetings of spring. Spring is a time when you come out of winter, and I think it is probably more observed in the parts of India which have a difference between winter and spring. When you start planting, that's why we use those colors, because they represent the beauty of nature, flowers and so on. So I hope that it's an opportunity for all Guyanese to enjoy themselves and to be happy in living in such a blessed country with people of different backgrounds. You know, I'd hate to live in a country without the festivals we celebrate, you know, the Chinese New Year, Pagba, Holi, Easter. In fact, in the Caribbean, you know, people always recognize the Guyanese. They're the only people flying kites on Easter. So we live in a beautiful country, and I think that the celebration of Holi is part of that beauty. I enjoy being Guyanese.
Well, that's a wrap on our half-hour program this week. Thank you, sir, for being here. And thank you, Tej and Devina, for joining us this week. Thank you, viewers, for watching. Do join us again next week.